Hi guys, it's Tom here.
And it's Dave.
How's it going? And we're looking at Far Cry Primal here, which is something I saw at an event last week, and we can finally show it today. This is the PS4 running, and we're getting a native 1080p from it, which is fantastic. The basic idea is it's Far Cry set 12,000 years ago, in a time of cavemen, tribes, saber-toothed tigers, that sort of thing. So it's a very similar proposition to what we had in the last few games.
Yeah, I mean, judging by the look of the PS4 version here, image quality looks pretty comparable to Far Cry 4 to me. There's not a lot of jaggies, it's all very smooth.
It also suggests we're keeping the same AA as well as the last game. Just looking at the way foliage is handled as we pan the camera. Last game, Far Cry 4, used HRAA, which stands for Hybrid Reconstruction Anti-Aliasing, I believe, which is comparable to 4 times RG supersampling. It's kind of a similar sort of effect as multi-sampling, but done in post. Plus a temporal pass, which filters through all the panning motions as you go across foliage. So for a game like this, it's kind of crucial, really.
It does a really good job as well, and what I find really surprising is it's done in like 1.2 milliseconds around that render time, so it's pretty efficient as well.
Yeah, I think per 1080p frame it takes 1 millisecond to 1.4 milliseconds.
So that's reasonably comparable to FXAA, but it does a lot better job. So
yeah, one of the big advantages really was it doesn't cause residual blur. You know, FXAA handles an image really well, but it leaves lots of blurring to textures, a light blurring, that can kind of sully the good work these artists put into the game. But here it really, HRA really does a great job of it. The only downside?
Yes, it's on the first shaders. There's like a shimmering effect going on.
Yeah, it's just like the last game, really. I mean, we're not 100% sure whether this is HRAA in use as it was in Far Cry 4, but it certainly has the telltale signs that it is using the same sort of approach, the same setup, and you can see it on the first shaders. There's a bit of flickering to them as you get up close to like saber-toothed tigers and that sort of thing. Still though, it looks great for what it is.
Well, yeah, looking at it here, one of the things that I'm finding quite impressive is performance. Judging by the looks of it, it's pretty consistent. It looks like it's a solid 30 FPS. How did you find it when you've played for a couple of hours? How was the gameplay session for you?
I think it's pretty much exactly as it suggests on the graph. I pretty much tried to find the worst case scenarios and literally couldn't find anything. Besides that part you may have saw at the start of the video where you get a drop to 28 frames per second. That is bundled with adaptive VSync, so when it drops you get a few torn frames at the top of the screen, but really they're completely unnoticeable in practice. So mainly we see these drops with fur shaders getting too close to animals or sharp turns in cutscenes, but otherwise I can't really fault it in this sense.
It looks a bit more sort of saturated colour-wise with the lighting. Have they actually changed anything sort of technically behind it?
You might be right, they have changed the saturation. They did set it in the Himalayas last time, which may have given it that sort of lightness that you saw last time, but generally I think they have improved a few things. Lighting is one of the things the developers have said to have changed for this game. You do get more volumetric fog in the background than we did in the last games, especially in caves and around just exploring the forests.
Yeah, I noticed it was a bit more like it wasn't as good as the PC version, the clip then, but it had more of that dense sort of fog roaming in the distance compared to Far Cry 4, which was a nice touch. And like here, you see the volumetric
light shafts.
Yeah.
I don't think you can really fault it on that front. It does stand out as an improvement to my eye. And they have also cited animations on animals as a big sort of improvement over the last game. Obviously, they've pushed for this angle in Primal, where you're basically a beast hunter and trying to tame these animals to complete missions, and like you get your own wolf. At one point, they've worked hard to give these creatures personality. And I guess the one other thing I noticed has kind of improved, though it's not up to Assassin's Creed Unity standard. I remember when Far Cry 4 came out, one of the slight disappointments was it didn't utilize the motion capture, especially the facial motion capture. And so I was hoping this game might match that, that photorealistic quality. So far, it looks good. It looks good. I'm not going to say it's as good, but they certainly pull off a great performance. They get the actors' qualities across. But otherwise, Far Cry Primal seems to be building on the template Far Cry 4 and even Far Cry 3 started. You know, it was meshing these cutscenes with a survival theme as you're basically going about your own way, doing quests at your own pace, lighting bonfires in this case to claim territory, hunting, foraging to build your own weapons, and you can play the game any way you like within the sort of rules they've set. So it does feel very familiar to the last few games, but in another sense they have taken it to a kind of natural conclusion. So yeah, that's the PlayStation 4 version, but I guess the question remains is how will the Xbox One and PC versions turn out once they come out in February? You did the face-off for this, didn't you?
I did, yeah, I did the Far Cry 4 face-off. I imagine with the Xbox One version, we're probably going to be looking at a resolution around sort of, well, the Far Cry 4 was 1440 by 1080.
Yeah.
So I imagine if they're going to cut back on anything, they might sort of use the same resolution. That's the major difference I expect with Xbox One. One area I do hope they improve is the resolution on Xbox One. They use the HRAA to reconstruct the 1440 frame buffer into 1080p.
Yeah, that's
and
it.
There were some artifacts.
It didn't look quite right, did it, at all points? And it looked quite soft as well.
Yeah, there was periods where it would be quite smooth, and then there'd be jaggies on foliage. So it would kind of go between the two, image quality-wise. That's pretty much the biggest thing I'd like to see changed or improved. But other than that, I imagine it's going to be a similar setup, just from what I've seen with the PlayStation 4 version of this game. So.
And do you remember much of the PC version?
I remember they had this volumetric or NVIDIA enhanced
volumetric
fog, which kind of cakes the entire environment in this thick mist, which it looked great in sort of dense jungle areas.
But it didn't really help the gameplay, did it? It was a bit overbearing.
Yeah, it didn't work in all environments. It was kind of just posted sort of everywhere rather than in places where it would make sense. So,
but we can expect more features like that from the PC version when it arrives. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this little discussion and hope to see you in the next one.
Indeed. Thanks for watching. See you next time.